Cooking is an essential part of Vintage Story, and if you don't know how, it could seriously hinder your entire playthrough. Fortunately, it's really simple. So let's go through all the levels of cooking. Level 1, Basic Cooking. So you need something to keep you going through your first night and the chaos that comes after. Well, this is where Level 1 comes in. Just build a fire pit. To do that, just place down a piece of grass, add firewood, light it with a fire starter or torch, and cook your freshly harvested red meat from that boar that almost killed you 3 seconds into spawning it. Gotta get that revenge, you know? So once that's done, just add the meat in and wait a little bit and it's done. You can also cook cattail roots, fish, and any other protein. A neat trick if you're later in the game too and have dough but no oven, you can actually cook the dough in the fire pit to get some bread. Though it's not as good as using an oven, but it's good if you're in a pinch. This level sustains you for the majority of the early game. But what about later in the game? Level 2, Meals. This is the heart of cooking, and mostly what you'll be using for the rest of the game. Meals vary with over 350,000 options. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of options. And quickly before we dive into this, I'll explain why this is needed, not just good to have. Meals allow you to maximize your crops, because it doesn't just have the saturation from all the food components, but it adds a bonus, and it's actually really noticeable too. For most ingredients, saturation values double at least in meals. Some, like grains, quadruple. So this is not a minor thing, it's major. Here's another thing. You get multiple nutrients if you have a varied meal. So if you have meat, veggies, and fruit in one meal, you get a bit of all of those nutrients added to your stats. And here's the craziest thing. You can make multiple servings in one pot. So if you cook a stew, for example, you can make up to 6 servings in one pot. So this allows you to basically stack your food to some degree. Alright, so now let's break down the method behind the mechanic of cooking. There are 4 slots in the cooking interface. The first 2 define what type of meal you're making. So, for example, if you make porridge, add 1 piece of flax grain into both slots, and that tells the game, hey, this player's making flax porridge. The other 2 are technically optional, but it's optimal to add something to them too. So here's an example. If I'm making meat stew, I put red meat into the first 2 slots, but to add more saturation and nutrients, I add some turnips I got, and some red currants. That helps a ton. You can make meat stew, veggie stew, mushroom stew, porridge, and lots more meals. The game will actually tell you if the meal is valid. Look up at the top of the UI to see a meal description. If there's no description, then it's not valid. Also, you can't cook meals using bushmeat. It doesn't work. You can only cook it over a fire pit by itself. Also, you might have noticed I said stews when describing the meals. Here's another option that's similar but cheaper to make. Soups. Soups are unique because they have water in one of the first 2 slots, and the main ingredient is only in the other, making it so that you get more bang for your buck if you don't have much food available to you. Short of water being in the meal, it functions roughly the same as the stews. For making any meal, the amount of ingredients need to be the same. If you make 5 servings, you need 5 of each ingredient in the slot you're using. So if you make a soup, for example, you need 5 liters of water, 5 carrots, 5 turnips, and 5 red meat. You can't have 4 red meat or 7 carrots in there. And one last thing before we move on. Foods with health benefits lose their effect when it's in meals, like saguaro fruit. It won't heal you when it's in a meal. Although this doesn't apply to poisonous mushrooms. They don't lose their harmful effect in the meal. So just don't use them at all. Alright, so we know the basics of meal making. So let's dig deeper into some more exotic options. Level 3, Fancy Food. Ooh. This requires a good amount of setup to get the food in the first place, depending on which of these you're making. So let's just dive in. What is there? Starting off with jam. We actually haven't made this in our game since we don't have honey, but it functions similarly to standard meals, just with 2 key changes. Number 1, it needs 2 slots filled with honey, and the other 2 to have some form of fruit. They don't have to be the same type of fruit, just the same amount. So you could do apples and blueberries, as an example. And as for honey, 0.2 liters is the equivalent of 1 berry. So if you're making 1 serving of jam, put 0.2 liters of honey in the 2 slots. The max is 1.6 liters for a full 6 servings. This is fantastic late game because berries by themselves rot very quickly, most going at the 2-day mark, with the only exception being cranberries with double the time of life. Jam turns that 2 days into about 1.5 years if stored in cellars, which we explain in this video, so go check that out after this one. So essentially, if you have a good supply of honey, this is a great option. Another fancy option is scrambled eggs. using 2 slots of eggs, and you can fill the other slots with either veggies, cheese, or more eggs like this. Moving on to baking. This is my personal favorite variation of cooking because it's very satisfying. Baking revolves around dough. Kneading a quern for grinding grain into flour, then combining it with water that makes dough. Then you need a clay oven made from fire clay. Like I said before, you can technically put dough in a fire pit, but it's always not going to be as good. I just recommend using an oven. Plus, since you need metal tools to get the flour anyway, the chances are this isn't hard for you to do. You can put up to 4 pieces of dough in an oven, and as they cook, they go through 4 stages. 1, completely raw. This is the starting stage, like right when you put it in. Number 2, part baked. This is not long after being in the oven. Now they are technically edible, but I don't recommend it. Number 3, baked. This is when they're full-fledged bread. You get the highest saturation from this stage, so this is generally when you take it out. Also, are you seeing how this bread rises still? It is beyond satisfying, I swear. Number 4, charred. This is when the bread is burnt and doesn't look amazing. Or is it just me? Anyway, this is a fantastic option if you want it to last long. Though it doesn't give as much saturation as stage 3, this is great for an adventure or if you want it to go through winter because it lasts much longer than stage 3 bread. Alright, that's the basic version of baking. If you really want to step things up, you should make pies. Pies are great because it uses produce and dough, giving you more variety. You need a table to form the pies on, but once you have it, just place down the dough, filled up with your desired ingredient, which can be berries, veggies, fruit, cheese, or meat. The only exceptions being bushmeat, soybeans, and any mushroom. You can also make a pot pie using veggies and meat. Once full, you can choose to add another 2 pieces of dough on top to add a top layer of crust. And a neat little trick is to take your knife and right-click the dough. You can actually change the design multiple times. Pretty neat, right? That isn't needed though, just once it's done, just throw it in the oven and it goes through the same 4 stages as bread. Though you can only have 1 pie in the oven at a time compared to 4 with bread. Alright, now it's time to talk about a slightly more obscure aspect of cooking. So let's dive in. Level 4, alcohol brewing. There are 3 levels to alcohol brewing, but before that, let's talk about juice. To make juice, you need a fruit press and some fruit of pretty much any kind. You can also press honey to make different honey, and olives to make olive oil, which can replace fat. Alright, so we know how to get juice, but how do you turn it into alcohol? First off, let's explain the benefits of alcohol versus juice. Fruit juice gives 200 saturation, whereas fermented alcohol gives 70, but it lasts much longer. Years if stored right. Honey and all types of juice ferment at a 1-to-1 ratio into alcohol, while grain-based ales ferment at a ratio of 5-to-1. 5 liters of water and 5 flour gives 1 liter of ale, with a full barrel of 50 liters water and 50 flour producing 10 liters of ale. Fruit ciders, along with wines, take 7 days to seal in a barrel, which is how they are stored and go through the process of fermenting. Mead, which is honey fermented, and grain-based ales take double the time, 14 in-game days. Any ale requires flour along with water, whereas cider and wines just need the juice. So now it's time to move on to the next type of alcohol. I will preface this by saying we haven't done this before, so I'm only going off the wiki for this. So to distill alcohol, you boil the fermented stuff and condense it with water. The benefits aren't amazing, to be honest. Essentially, you lose 90 to 95% saturation, you have no nutrition, along with it being 10 times more intoxicating. One good thing about it though is that it never spoils, it lasts forever. Generally, from what I can gather, it's mainly used for compressing a ton of fermented alcohol that you have if you have too much. So if you have barrels and barrels and barrels, just distill it and that will save it and you can use it later. I will mention too, this is insanely expensive to make. Like a ton of copper is needed and it's like a whole setup. Alright, what's the final version of alcohol? Aqua Vitae. At least I think I'm saying that right. This is twice distilled alcohol and gives 40 saturation but no nutrition. How we went from 0 saturation to 40 saturation and by distilling it twice, I don't know. Its main and really only use is bandages, upping the healing from 3 HP to 7 HP, but it dries out in an hour. So I'd recommend using it. Just bring the Aqua Vitae with you if you're going on an adventure, along with the bandages, so you can just make it whenever you need it. Otherwise, here's the recipe for making all the stuff needed for distilling. Whew. Alright, so now you have your good ale, pies, bread, mountains of crops, all stored in cellars from what you've learned in the past 2 videos about farming, plus this one. So hopefully this has been useful to everyone. And if you haven't seen the other 2 videos about farming, go check those out. If you're watching this video, I can guarantee you'll find those videos useful. Alright, so that is everything cooking related in Vintage Story. Thanks for watching. Go check out our other stuff if you haven't seen it. Yeah, subscribe.